Starting to the top left of the map, we have the MVP Terran player in red Ascent. This is
MVP Dream.
Just recently played in the GSTL. In the finals. In fact, his team did not win.
Yeah, even though they claimed the top spot at the end of the regular season, they weren't able to win the finals against LGIM. Starting to the bottom right now on Star Station, we have his opponent dropping out of the Premier League. It is
SK Telecom T1 FanTaSy.
FanTaSy in this matchup, just to go over a few initial statistics to give you a little bit of an indication of their recent performance. If you look at his offline record in Heart of the Swarm, you have him with 14 maps played and a 36% win ratio against Terran. He lost to opponents like Innovation, Tasia, Flash, and Light, so really strong Terrans to face. So you'd still have to take this with a little bit of a grain of salt. But then when you look at Dream, this is where things are getting a little bit scary for the MVP player, because as I mentioned earlier, he wasn't able to win a single series against Terran in Heart of the Swarm just yet. He played 4 different opponents. He played Yoda, Gumiho, MVP and Jakji, and he lost to all of them. He won a single map, and that was a map in the best of 3 against MVP, but besides that, he wasn't successful in this matchup at all. So I wouldn't actually be surprised to see some sniper builds out of him.
Yeah. It's really funny because the type of training style that we've seen from the MVP house seems to be very similar to the old Kespa style, where there's a lot of sniper strategies prepared all the time for certain matchups. And when you have a best of 3 and you have this much time to repair, you usually see some incredible cheeses come out, or some incredible all-ins and timings come out. And as we've seen in the GSTL especially, MVP is a team that really has good preparation for this. And FanTaSy, coming from one of the most successful StarCraft 1 teams of all time, and also transitioning into being one of the best StarCraft 2 teams, definitely has some good preparation on his side as well. So I think this TVT is kind of shaping up to be a really exciting one. Both players actually kind of doing the same builds here.
Yep. But we have the second gas for FanTaSy, something the Dream doesn't get just yet, so the earlier gas and more gas also for the SKT1 player. Also a little bit indicative that we might see the Banshee transition for him once again with Cloak. Question, of course, being what exactly Dream is going to do once that he completes his own starport. Could still go into the Banshees. Would have a bit of a delayed Cloak, though.
Yeah, I think what we could see from Dream is just one Banshee off of that tech lab that he did. It's going to be a really fast Banshee, though, because he made the tech lab with his barracks and started the starport on top of the tech lab, as you can see here. So as soon as he finishes, he doesn't have to waste any time switching. He can just go right into the fastest possible Banshee. And we're going to see FanTaSy go for a switch. So if both players go Banshee, we could definitely see a funny game. It's all about the control.
We could see a Marine King Byung moment again, as in game number 2, when they took down each other's harvesters, and then we had a very low economy game. And there we go, FanTaSy heading straight into the Cloak and adding his own Banshee, whereas we have for Dream only the Banshee, no Cloak upgrade so far, and he also doesn't have the gas to get that anytime soon. So let's see how exactly this is going to play out. Widowmine's even coming now up for FanTaSy, and I like this build that FanTaSy plays a little bit more, to be honest.
Yeah.
Dream is very much relying on the Hellions doing damage.
The thing about FanTaSy's build is it transitions less easily than what Dream is doing. Dream can easily transition to Command Center very soon. In fact, he probably will in a few seconds. What FanTaSy is doing is really committed to doing some heavy damage. Like, he's putting his boxing gloves on right now. He's about to go in swinging.
But just look at what we have now for FanTaSy. FanTaSy could actually start his own Command Center fairly soon too. And even with that bit of a delay, if FanTaSy gets his kills with a Banshee, that would be perfect for him. The one move that I really like for Dream is getting his own Viking immediately, so that he has something in addition to the Marines alone that can deal with the air units of his opponent. But he didn't really see this just yet. And once Cloak hits, this could do a lot of damage. Since we don't have a second Command Center, we don't have a second orbital, and therefore only one source of scans.
Yeah. Here comes that first Banshee. Needs to be careful with, needs some micro against the Marines. He actually micros the Hellions quite well down in the low ground.
Good move here. The Hellions alone doing a lot of damage against those Marines, and oh my god, Dream with a micro here. That is looking incredible.
Dream is doing so much here. It's becoming FanTaSy's nightmare as the Hellions targeting down so many SCVs. The defensive Banshee here also not doing damage. Back at home, FanTaSy's Banshee not going to do too much against the Viking. He also has a scan.
The scan should go down. The Marines are trying to get into a good position, and there is the scan. The Marines doing damage, but the Banshee is going to escape. The problem is that at the bottom right, that one Banshee is still wreaking havoc, finally taken out, but the Harvester count at this point in time is just 26 to 20.
Yeah. And, you know, he's actually equalizing it here a little bit, though.
Yeah, good move so far by FanTaSy, and that's really the problem if you only have one source of scans and no other detection.
The FanTaSy's Commander's not building. He lost his building SCV, and he has not replaced it. This is costing him a lot of time because FanTaSy is up against double SCV production now for Dream.
He's focusing on that attack here at the top, and oh my god, did he kill many units. 12 against 10. So in regards to the Harvesters killed, they kind of equalized it, but as you said already, FanTaSy, he was so focused on the attack that he did not rebuild or start building his command center again. So now Dream suddenly taking that lead, not only because he has the second mule, but he has double SCV production and the second mineral line.
He didn't do the damage he wanted to do with his attack. He did a decent amount, but he's making a third CC now and continuing Banshee production. So he's basically taking a risk at this point in time because he knows economically he's a little bit behind.
There's still not a lot of detection, and here comes the Banshee again. Okay, we have the Raven.
Yeah, the Raven will put it up, but there's no turrets.
Yeah. So with the defense, with good micro, he can still do the damage, but the Banshee, of course, is going down. The Viking will not get that away.
And he actually didn't cancel that last Banshee he made, so he has to try to make something work with that. A few Hellions are going to come up here and check to see if FanTaSy put his command center on low ground just yet. They can also annoy the Marines because there's no stem. And there's 4 Hellions. 4 Hellions can do a lot more than 2.
With 6 Hellions, he can do more than with 4. And
yeah,
he's actually rallying those over right now. Scans ahead and gets a few hits, but now the siege tank is in the game, and that should be able to shut that down.
He's just trying to make sure the command center can't be lowered because he knows his command center's been down for so much longer. Takes a shot there. We'll walk away, but look at the production tab for FanTaSy. He's doing so much more than Dream is right now. Dream takes his third on the low ground, though. But look at that. Stim, more siege tanks. He already has the siege tank lead. And his own third CC. FanTaSy, I like his position here.
Ooh, we have Blue Flame coming up for Dream, and with a double factory, of course, already indicating that he plans to go into a mech composition. So we will most likely see Hellbats as well. And the Hellbat drop with Blue Flame would be pretty sexy against what FanTaSy is doing here. That is also very useful later on if you just drop on top of the Bioforces, if you get in with the Medivacs, that is.
And even without the Transformation Servos upgrade, the Hellions that he has here can do actually a lot of damage on the ground. Like, just regular Hellions can do a lot of damage to the Blue Flame as well. We see additional reactors being added here by FanTaSy. He's just trying to get those barracks prepped.
And another Banshee goes down.
Looks like total, 5 kills there.
20 Harvesters killed against 10, so an additional 8. Quite the investment. But of course the question now, how much damage are those Hellions going to do? They will actually barely be able to hit with the Blue Flame upgrade if he waits a little bit. And that is something that FanTaSy might not expect.
Yeah, he's going to expect when he sees this drop, probably Marines even. Or maybe he thinks the Hellions from earlier are there, but he hasn't yet scouted that his opponent is meching.
That Viking is actually in the perfect spot. And here comes that Blue Flame Hellion upgrade. Is it going to be in time? It looks like this is just going to work out perfectly for him. Now he's moving in. He dodges the Viking. Here come the Hellions. He moves in right away. Blue Flame has been revealed. And it's time for the Hellions, but most of the SCVs are already off the mineral line.
He just narrowly escapes that Widow Mine. Few SCVs going down. The Viking being repositioned here. He may decide to boost out, or he may try to trade against the Marines. He boosts, and he gets away. And there was a scan during this. FanTaSy has already seen now that Dream is going for mech.
And I was a bit surprised that Dream did not just boost into the main base. I think he was afraid that his Medivac might not be able to escape anymore if he uses the afterburners already. But he could have done a lot of damage with those Hellions in the mineral line. But as it is, he does a bit of damage and gets out. So I think still a fairly good job here.
Dream has had this third base landed and been used for a really long time. FanTaSy has a great siege tank spread here. The Hellions not able to accomplish anything, but the economy for Dream is really showing here as he's getting additional Hellbats. His siege tanks are coming out. He's getting +1 for mech. And +1 for mech is actually not even that far behind the +1 attack for FanTaSy's bio units.
2 Hellbats so far. Not the most impressive HPM that we've seen in the past, but after the new patch was just expected that that would drop a little bit.
Yeah.
When we have still a decent economy for both of them. I mean, through base against through bases, same amount of Harvesters. Upgrades are, of course, starting to get a bit better for the Terran player with Bio. And here comes that drop. But nice pull by FanTaSy. I really like his reaction time. That's pretty incredible. Like, he didn't lose any harvesters to the last 2 attacks. An attempted drop into the main base again, but where's the pull?
The Viking comes in here, the pull is good, and he shouldn't lose anything to this.
Oh, well, actually, right now, that's a few SCVs that he didn't move so far. But yeah, can't decide on which SCV to target and lose the Helbets before they can do the damage.
FanTaSy is supply blocked, he's not making a depot. This has actually been a big problem for him in his StarCraft 2 career.
Yeah.
You know, we joked about it before, but it's actually coming back, and this is, I think, the 3rd time I've cast a FanTaSy game where he's heavily supply blocked. Now he starts 3, but look at him start to build a bank here because he can't spend his money because he's supply blocked.
You know, he's also very, very low in medivacs, so this is a very strong force that he sends across the map. But if he takes damage and if he has to start, well, if he has to start his own, like if he has to stim and move back later, it's going to be a big problem for him that he can't heal those hit points that he's going to lose. He's just now restarting the medivac production, and that's pretty late.
Yeah. Scan goes down here. He just wants to see where his opponent's units are, where he can maybe find a weak spot and attack with his bio armor, because the advantage the bio always has over mech is that it's more mobile. He can move across the map a lot faster.
Yeah, those dropships with the Hellbats, he wants to drop on top of that bio, as already mentioned before.
Got Hellbat versus Marauder here having a little battle. A few more Hellions join the mix. Barracks goes down here. Stim underneath the Vikings, but he needs to stim away from those Hellbats. They're dropping right on top.
Ah, good hits here, good hits. And now the low medivac count comes into play. You know, the Barracks going down, I think that was the only one. He can't produce any factories anymore.
Yeah, you're right. He's not going to want any more factories for a while, but eventually this is going to be a problem for him.
He has 5 at this point, so he's still fine, but at some point, yeah, that might become an issue for him.
Yeah, it's definitely something to remember.
Oh, here comes another drop attempt.
Yeah, he's going to... As long as there's a pull here by FanTaSy, he's not going to...
That afterburner timing was kind of useless.
Yeah. He gets some Marines here, and you know, that was actually resources lost, trade very even for Marines is the same cost as 2 Hellbats, so totally fine there. And the scan goes down. He wants to see how much the drop's going to do. This may actually hint to Dream that there's a drop coming, and in fact, it definitely does. Whenever someone scans a base like that, you kind of have this
at the natural to the bottom right, we have once again units in the mineral line, but the same is now true for the natural of Dream. He's being attacked with the drop play, and of course those Hellbats are dropped immediately. We already have Vikings taking down the medivacs here, and not a lot killed here by FanTaSy.
Yeah, the bottom right drops are just kind of hanging out over there, not getting anything done, and they're spotted by a Viking. They're pushed back now. Not shown on screen, but one medivac actually taken out. Well, Dream has a really good composition. He has a huge composition advantage, and he's coming across the map now with all those units loaded in the medivacs. The Marine count for FanTaSy is 23 to 15 Marauders, so he does have a good chunk of Marauders here, and they're not too bad against the Hellbats. Oh, these two pass each other. This could be a base trade. Oh, now he's spotted.
Yeah, he's spotted, but still, FanTaSy just goes for it. He's moving in, and there's still a couple of sieged up tanks, and they try to take down at least the bio. The siege up here for FanTaSy is also strong, but the better army here for MVP Dream currently at the bottom right.
Yeah, a lift here, runs away. Dream definitely having the better army here, that's for sure. You're correct about that. And FanTaSy does have a 1 siege tank on the high ground. That's all he has, and it looks like Dream is going to try to push through it.
Yeah, Dream is moving in right now, and he already sieged up his tanks back at home, so he should be able to save at least the natural and the main base at the same time, though the SCV's fighting Hellbats, never a good idea, and the choke point is completely under control of Dream.
Yeah, and he's forced FanTaSy to walk back. FanTaSy is in so much trouble right now. The SCV is the natural under attack by Hellbats as well. He has to fight them here, and FanTaSy in so much trouble. Dream even walking up the ramp now.
Completely controlling the ramp here, and all those SCVs are just taken out. Hellbats and siege tanks. Suddenly, we have a 60-70 supply lead for Dream. He's taking down this army. So many of the tanks of FanTaSy are gone. His SCV count is so low, and this is game GG.